Our next session will explore the past 18 months and how they've accelerated digital transformation across the board, requiring a unique level of collaboration between the public and private sectors. To discuss this acceleration, this all-woman panel leading technology for Canadians from coast to coast will provide insight regarding building culture and skills while also protecting data, ensuring innovation, and moving the digital public sector forward. Please join me in welcoming Christiana Cavazzoni, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Information Management, and Deputy Chief Information Officer with the Department of National Defence, Lisa Carroll, Public Sector Leader with Microsoft Canada, Lucie Loignan, Chief Information Officer and Corporate Services and Finance Branch with Environment and Climate Change Canada, and Michelle Mullen, Director General, Partnerships and Risk Mitigation with the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. To get this discussion started, I'll now turn it over to our moderator, Lisa Carroll. Thank you all for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are located. And thank you for joining us for the Moving the Digital Public Sector Forward conversation. I'd like to start with acknowledging that the lands on which we are gathered are part of the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. So, this is the first week of November, and I have to say, over the last 5 years, I've actually looked forward to the first week of November. And Alistair, Rebecca, and the rest of the Forward 50 crew, I think it's because you've built this great, unique experience for all of us. We're awesome global thought leaders, engage, we share knowledge, and we tackle important problems the first week of November every year, which is awesome. I always learn a lot and meet a ton of great people, and I'm excited to join again this year. I am Lisa Carroll. I have the fortune of leading the public sector team for Microsoft across this country. My team and I have had the privilege over the past 20 months to really partner with public sector customers across this country to accelerate their digital journey. I am honored to be joined with this fabulous crew of women leaders who are really entrenched in moving the public sector forward on their digital journey. As we all know, government technology ecosystems are more complex than ever. The global pandemic has ushered in rapid adoption of digital solutions to enable entire workforces to work and collaborate remotely, while at the same time ensuring the continuity of vital citizen services, from education, social benefits, policing, justice, all the way to healthcare. Technology was critical to how governments and businesses and societies were able to adapt and function during COVID. While at the same time, cybercrime has become a larger threat to national security. Cyber criminals are targeting and attacking all sectors of critical infrastructure, healthcare, financial services, energy sectors, and really putting more and more cost and soaring impact to businesses. And I'm sure Michelle will touch a little bit on that today in our conversation. Microsoft recently commissioned a study conducted by the Economist Intelligence Unit, and it's titled The Transformation Imperative. It was a global study of senior business and government executives spanning 8 industries around the world, exploring pre- and post-pandemic organizational and digital priorities. For the government sector, there were actually some interesting results that I thought I would share here today, and I think really link to some of the conversations we'll have in the panel. First one, 8 out of 10 government leaders stated that investment in digital technology has increased since the pandemic. Not a tremendous surprise, but I think it's that recognition that digital is now deemed critical infrastructure. These investments not only must continue in new technologies to improve government services, but there must be a simultaneous investment to top-tier security technology and practices. The second piece is, unlike other industry sectors, government leaders cited skills and talent gaps tied with security and privacy as the government sector's number one biggest barrier to transformation. Good news is that government is really demonstrating highest levels of initiatives and partnerships with universities, apprenticeship programs, which is a great pathway to closing the skill gaps for the longer term. And the last one, which I thought was interesting, was pre-COVID, during COVID, operational efficiency was the primary driver of digital transformation over the past year for governments. But there's a shift going on now. And the shift is the reprioritization towards employee engagement, across governments as the primary driver, which I think is very cool. Great themes on people, talent, hybrid work of the future. Through our work with governments across the country, we've recognized a few patterns. The organizations that are the best positioned to manage transformations are the ones where people are skilled on new technologies, there's deep engagement and collaboration across teams, even in this virtual world, and they have a growth mindset culture that, while recognizing that there are barriers that exist, they're looking at creative ways and new ways for solving those. They're adjusting their risk tolerance levels, and they have deeper public and private partnerships, and they're always open to new ways of working and supporting citizen services. We know that technology can unlock human ingenuity to solve many challenges in new ways, improve workflows, and ultimately provide superior citizen and business experience. But technology is just part of the journey to digital acceleration. The organizational change, talent, change management are critical to the success. So, with that context, let's meet our wonderful panelists that we have. I'm going to ask each of you to spend a minute, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Lucy, why don't I start with you, and then Christiana and Michelle, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Hello, everybody. I am very pleased to be with you this afternoon. So, as mentioned, I'm the Chief Information Officer at Environment and Climate Change. I've been here 5 years, but more than 20 years in the government. And Environment and Climate Change has for mandate to provide meteorology, climate, nature conservation and protection, environmental regulation, which are very, very important for Canadians. And my responsibility is with my management team. Like, we manage a staff of about 500 people, like close to 400 system solutions that support 13 branches in this department. And we provide digital services. And my role really is to establish the vision for digital transformation. And by the same token is to establish the vision to progressively transform my team so that we can adopt and leverage modern technologies and best industry practices.
Awesome. Christiana.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you to 450 and Lisa for hosting me today. And I'm so privileged to be with these esteemed colleagues. I'm Christiana Cavazzoni. I'm the Associate ADM and Deputy CIO of the Department of National Defense. Very vast and exciting mandate. We are definitely at the cusp of initiating and formalize our digital transformation. My role within Defense is to first and foremost partner with the CIO of Defense, Len Bastien, and as well as the many commanders and civilian leaders in the DCAF. It's an extremely exciting journey. I've been in Defense now for 3 years. I've been in government 12 in a number of departments, and I started my career in the private sector in high tech with Nortel Networks. And I have learned so much through my journey, and I feel that through our digital transformation narrative in government in the private sector, I'm converging on a lot of the excitement and the learning that I have acquired through my career. I will talk a little bit later about where we're at in terms of the digital transformation in defense and some of the challenges and amazing opportunity that present themselves post-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, and moving forward in trying to achieve, a defense digital transformation by 2030. Thank you, Lisa and colleagues.
Thanks, Christiana. Michelle, please.
Thanks, Lisa. It really is a great pleasure to be here alongside these other great female leaders today to help illustrate all the important roles that we each play, frankly, as catalysts for the Government of Canada in our digital transformation. So the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, where I work, was only officially launched back on October 1st of 2018, but our parent agency, the Communications Security Establishment, has a long and rich history protecting Canadians from foreign threats of all kinds. In fact, we're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. The Cyber Center itself brings together a whole bunch of cross-functional teams with operational security experts in support of the National Cybersecurity Strategy, and it really represents a shift to a more unified approach to cybersecurity in Canada. Both CSE and the Cyber Center play an integral role in helping to protect Canada and Canadians against foreign-based terrorism, foreign espionage, cyber threat activity, kidnappings of Canadians abroad, and attacks on our embassies, among other really serious threats that have significant foreign elements. All of this is really aimed at ensuring our nation's security, stability, and prosperity.
Awesome. So, audience, pretty powerful crew of women here and influential from cybersecurity, national security, and climate change, which is absolutely top of everyone's mind. So, looking forward to the conversation. But I'm going to start with a little bit of a softer question. As we know, we've all had really interesting worlds over the last 20 months. Eager to hear from each of you. What have you done personally outside of work? What have you done differently in this new virtual work and something that you want to continue forward as we get to our future of new norm? Why don't I start, Michelle, you first, Lucy, and then Christiana.
Sure thing, Lisa. Actually, I started a series of monthly sort of virtual thematic wine tastings with a group of women that I had really lost touch with over the years. We're actually a group of women who were all among the first to graduate from Canada's military colleges back at a time when we weren't so welcome in the system just yet. And so by exploring new varietals of wines from different regions and pairing them with yummy foods, we kind of developed a new appreciation for wine and for each other. And I think the result of that is really building a positive and really rewarding network, exploring our shared interest in wines that has nothing to do with the individual paths that our careers have followed, even though we started out, in a common approach as 17 and 18-year-old brave young women in uniform over 30 years ago. And we kind of wish we had learned to celebrate each other like this years earlier. So for that, thank you, coronavirus.
Good. There are some positives, right? Touching people in different locations that you wouldn't normally get to see. That's good. That's good. Lucy.
So for me, I've been thinking, okay, what am I going to continue to do? Yeah, well, continue to work from home, a few days a week, that's for sure. But outside of work, I'd say that what's been a game changer is really to do video conference with my family who's outside the country. Like my dad is a snowbird. And, we used to talk to him on the phone once in a while, but like he's 80 years old plus even, and he discovered a video conference in the pandemic. So that was very, very cool for that. And we intend to continue to do that. And I have a sister who's in the United States who we didn't really connect all that much except on the phone once in a while because she's very busy. I'm busy, different time zone, but we started actually discussing a few hours on the video over the weekend. And actually that has brought us very much closer. So I do intend to continue that. And another thing is I got a yoga membership online. I used to go to the club closed, and I kind of like it. So I intend to continue that for sure because it's just more convenient.
That's fantastic. Christiana.
So I started off wanting to learn how to bake. I'm not a baker. I like to cook, but I decided to start baking. But that baking led me to quite a few pounds. So as a result of it, I decided to engage in aggressive exercise from home. I'm on the treadmill, so I'm actually completely devoted to my treadmill. And as well as Lucy mentioned, online classes, I do have a passion for barre, which is a bit of a mix of yoga and ballet. For those who know me, I don't have the ballet, I would say, posture, but it's become really rewarding. And at the same time, I can still do some baking and at the same time enjoy it and burn the calories off on my treadmill. Thank you.
That's fantastic. So friends, family, eating, and exercise, and a little bit of drink. I think it's what everyone is looking forward to continue. Good for you. Good for you. Okay, so Lucy, I'm going to start with a question for you. So there are real trade-offs when managing digital transformation in the public sector, especially with environment and climate change Canada. These include balancing speed to delivery, cost, public reception, and environmental impact, very importantly. What has been the biggest challenge for you over the past year, and what is your advice to those facing these big decisions?
So I just want to mention that being in the public sector right away, one of the challenges that we have is that we have to follow the government cycle. And while we know that the year starts April 1st and it ends March 31st, there are a few things in between that has a high impact on our projects. And that is like, for instance, the speech from the throne, the budget, the election, and the mandate letter for the ministers that we're expecting shortly. And those happen at a specific time. And then oftentimes we have to adapt and adjust. And then given that we've had an election recently, I'd say that it's been part of our challenge. But there are three things really that I would like to talk to you about today. And one of them is we've had to balance the need to invest in new modern technologies and pivot while maintaining our current system, and that has been a challenge. Another one is that the data challenge and science, the need to approach it from an enterprise perspective, it has exacerbated. Actually, it has been accentuated. And then the third one is really like from the human perspective, the challenge on workload, the fatigue, and that has been quite something to deal with, and that we're going to need to pay some attention going forward. So I go back on the balancing the need to invest in pivot. I would say that one of the things that we've started to do, like aside from very, very tight planning, is really to start using, in order to expedite the digital transformation, is to start using cloud-based microservice architecture to develop our solutions in order to expedite how we can deliver over the next few years. And one thing as well that we've started doing and that we need to continue is to acknowledge what we called in our industry like shadow IT or business IT or whatever other words. And I think we cannot ignore that anymore. And then we've started recognizing that and working on a framework to guide those pockets, I guess, or I say pockets of people, but it will become the norm going forward, right? Therefore, in putting a framework where we can manage what these people are doing, like have a better governance around it, that's going to help. And another thing in that team is to pivot to software as a service. We've started doing that, and then we still have a lot more work to remove the security and funding and governance barrier as well to moving forward. On the data challenge, yes, there was always a need for data and science to be better tackled. But because of what's going on from if I can speak about environment and climate change perspective, the climate is at the heart of the government priority. And every department like NRCan, Agriculture, us, they all have a piece, and it has accentuated the need to actually share the data amongst us and then to have infrastructure that we can share. And then therefore, there's a lot of work being done in the government right now to establish governance mechanism so that we work better together. And the third one, I think it's not a secret for everybody that we do need to pay a lot of attention on human resources. I find that people have stepped up very fast, and then they've worked very hard to ensure that everybody could adopt the collaboration tools and then change how we do work. And then now I find that after a year and a half of that, people were tired, but they're starting to recover. But I sense that there's a little bit a need to actually stimulate their passion. As we say in French, I feel people are a little bit à plat, like they're not as energized. So it's not a question to motivate, it's a question to re-stimulate their passion. And I think we need to continue to do some social gatherings, get together, more brainstorming with the teams, while being mindful of the priorities, making sure that we pay a lot of attention to the human resources side of things.
That's fantastic. So a lot of great advice there. I think if I segue from the last piece, human resources, I think, are top of everybody's mind right now as we kind of recover from this current situation. We'll say I'd be curious, and maybe people can answer throughout this a little bit, is what are you thinking about hybrid of the future? What about in person? I will share with us, we're starting in the right places, following public health, of course, regulations and safety, but we're starting to get more people in person every once in a while because that human touch is helping with that re-stimulation, at least something that we're finding. So I'll be eager for each of you maybe to touch on that as we go through the conversation today. So Christiana, I'm going to pivot to a question for you, please. So Canada's defense and intelligence agencies, you are undergoing an important digital transformation. I know an awful lot on your roadmap. You are increasingly embracing the idea of harnessing the full potential of technology in support of your missions. Can you tell us about the digital ambitions for D&D and how are you leveraging technology to build resilience and inform your mission critical decision making?
Sure. Our force is a very complex organization, highly dependent on being able to mobilize quickly. That has come to a cost to a certain extent because we are reacting very quickly to the situation. I think a few things have surfaced that conditions have surfaced that I think it's important to reflect on. One is, as my colleague Michelle mentioned, the cyber threat landscape. And the second one being as well COVID, right? COVID has required for us to be able to still mobilize on behalf of Canadians and on behalf of a mission and react quickly by adopting very quickly new technology. And Office 365 cloud-based has been very pivotal for us to be able to, stay operative, stay in operations, make some adjustments in terms of hybrid workforce. And we're still hybrid at the moment, but at the same time, make us reflect on what do we need to do to get more digitally enabled. So we are undertaking a bit of a consideration on how we can better harmonize ourselves as a D&D CAF around digital transformation. We're looking at various ways, a structural change. We're also looking at greater integration between, the departmental size, the enabling enterprise to the mission and the mission component, integrating around common capabilities. Our approach is going to be, and it's evolving, as you know, to look at capabilities that can be adopted, that can be integrated, and that will enable us to have a very harmonized and digitally enabled and data enabled, what I would say, network of networks. We also call it systems of systems, and I rather refer to it network of networks, which leads me to investment into the digital backbone. A lot of consideration around the digital backbone and what is that? That is a number of different things, right? We're working with Shared Services Canada to be able to keep the current network humming, also upgrade it, modernize it so that it's able to respond to some of the demands of digital, but as well as looking at, what our allies are doing in the space of cloud, for instance, so that we can maintain that interoperability with allies. It is important to reflect on our complexity, right? We have many different interfaces, as I call it, to be able to speak digitally, and that is with our allies in terms of interoperability, but as well internal to the department and the Canadian government at large. So this set of capabilities have to lend themselves to all these different complexities and these different obligations that we have that are really part of our mission. We are making some, investments in cloud, for instance. So we're making investments on ICAM. We're making investments as well in data. We have a chief data officer within the Department of National Defense. What is our challenge is going to be moving forward is how do we make it so that there's no question there is a priority. There's no question that our deputy minister and our acting chief of defense staff are convinced that this needs to get done. It's the question of how do we get it done, considering the complexity of defense, right? The complexity of the federation of the CIO that we try to manage every day. And how do you overlay the digital ambition on top of that? So we're getting a lot of lessons learned from Canadian Government of Canada colleagues, ESTCs and Treasury Board, but we're also getting a lot of good insight from our allies and the Five Eyes so that we can better understand how we can not necessarily structure ourselves, how we can better position digital in the context of programmatics, as we call it, right? Into the decision making, into the prioritization, into the funding. So we can talk about it in a few months when we have fully articulated what our strategy is going to be. I'm very excited about it. I think what's Lucie and Michelle mentioned earlier is really about integrating the technology into as a value proposition for the enterprise and clear linkages to the mission. That's really important. Otherwise, I fear that we're always going to be looking at digital as a bit of a technology, a technology sprint. And it's far from being a technology sprint. It requires everyone at the table to be able to understand the power of digital, the value of digital, and the trade-offs that we need to make. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for that. I'm hearing themes already. Data, enterprise, how to manage the existing as you transform to the new, and obviously people, and talent to get there. So, Michelle, I mentioned earlier around digital becoming critical infrastructure, and you probably know that perspective much more than, frankly, any of us do, and the cybersecurity challenges that are faced. Igor, what have you learned? What have you seen over the past accelerated digital transformation? What's your advice to share with everyone?
Yeah, it's a good question, Lisa. Thanks. So it was always a part of the Cyber Center's plan to eventually transition to the cloud so that we could really be more in touch with the reality that our critical infrastructure partners have and what they face in the private sector. But the pandemic really accelerated those efforts for obvious reasons. And we've actually now got more staff working remotely than we ever thought was possible in our business. And we've really tried to be instrumental in spearheading and helping to implement the Government of Canada's cloud first strategy for all of the GC. So my team actually runs the cloud assessment program to vet products that are eventually used by GC departments for processing protected B information, for example. We were among the first early adopters of cloud technology ourselves at the onset of the pandemic. I like to call that eating our own dog food. And then we actually developed the very first of its kind cloud-based sensor through which we can actually monitor security in the cloud. And we've deployed that capability across the GC as well. And because of all that, we've been able to develop really good advice and guidance to support all the other GC departments and critical infrastructure partners as they do their transformations. And I like to call that sort of dog food informed lessons learned guidance. We've kicked the tires and really figured out what works. And that was a huge major shift for us because as an intelligence agency and a top secret cryptologic agency, we have always had our highly classified information sort of stored on premises using custom built capabilities, and we've very rarely forayed into the use of commercial technologies, including commercial cloud. So that's a real game changer. And I think that's all the more important because of the specific cybersecurity challenges that we're facing in Canada today. I'll run through a couple of those now. So Canadians and businesses both are connecting more of what they value than ever before to the internet. And some examples of that would be the obvious ones like banking information and personal identifying information. But I think what people forget sometimes is it's not only individuals, but it's also businesses, small and medium businesses that use those technologies now to perform their daily tasks and share that information. And malicious cyber threat actors, many of whom we know operate outside of our borders, actually take advantage of security gaps and low cybersecurity awareness and new technologies to try to compromise the cyber systems for those users that are now putting everything online. And it's really clear that threat actors are opportunistic creatures by nature, and although their goals remain the same as before, so either financial profit or notoriety or IP theft, and their capabilities continue to exploit known vulnerabilities through proven approaches like email phishing scams. Lately, since the pandemic, the lures they use have pivoted towards COVID-19 or pandemic-related language. And the reason for this is that it's actually a well-honed tactic to take advantage of people's heightened interest or even stress levels in a current issue to elicit the desired responses. And in practical terms, this really means that since the pandemic, before you would have seen phishing attempts that would have been disguised as, unexpected inheritances from a prince abroad that you'd never heard of before that's a long lost cousin suddenly. Whereas now the threat actors will actually try to bait you with fraudulent emergency relief benefit payments or something to do with your proof of vaccination requirements. They're really preying on the current fears of the population in order to get you to click the link without thinking first. So what can we do to mitigate those risks? Well, we publish all kinds of advice and guidance, like I said, for audiences with all different backgrounds to address those different sort of cyber threats that occur in the lives of different types of folks, different walks of life. We publish every second year an updated national cyber threat assessment, and we publish it on our website. And that zeroes in on what the specific threats are for citizens and small businesses, for example. And so in the answer to those particular threats, we've actually created a really easy to understand and simple to implement set of baseline security controls. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, for our more technical security practitioners out there, we have our top 10 security control framework that outlines basically the gold standard for security control solutions. But comprehensive solutions like that one, of course, take time, know-how, and investment to implement. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution by any means here in Canada. So the bottom line here is that, yeah, advanced threat actors will still use whatever techniques work to get to what they want. So instead of trying to prepare for the next zero-day attack or try investing still in basic cyber hygiene practices, spear phishing using social engineering techniques continues to be the most common vector to entry to all systems to deliver malware. And ransomware variants of that primarily exploit publicly known vulnerabilities, often for which a patch already exists and maybe hasn't immediately been applied by network infrastructure managers. So truthfully, basic cyber hygiene like patch management, user awareness and training, and backup and recovery might not be sexy, but it's still the best return on investment.
Good, good, good. Music to my ears. And I will say the sophistication, I think we're all seeing the sophistication of bad actors really increasing. And even myself, I live in this world and we do training constantly. I almost personally fell for a phishing attack a couple weeks ago. So you got to stay fresh, stay well aware on it. Lucy, I have a question for you. And I think Christiana had mentioned a little bit about digital transformation not just being the IT organization, it's the leadership, the business. It's not just a siloed IT responsibility. Successful efforts towards building digital foundation include everyone. And I think Catherine Luello, the CIO of Government of Canada yesterday, said the term digital is everyone's job in government. So easier said than done. Igor, your advice, how can government leaders leverage technology to empower employees and foster a culture of digital growth?
Well, I am very much in agreement with Catherine said yesterday. Well, I think the first is really to provide training, because we've deployed collaboration technology and to people, and then we're using video conference, we're using collaboration tools, but I believe that there are many more aspects to the collaboration that we have deployed, and I think that everybody could benefit for a little bit more training in order to actually leverage a bit more the tools that were deployed. The other thing, I've alluded to it a little bit in my other question, is to acknowledge the existence of what we used to call local solution, but I think it's more than that, is to acknowledge that everybody wants, some at various degrees, but there are a lot of people out there that actually want to, develop tools with low code tools that they have. And I think that one of the things that we can do is really to establish the framework and to establish the governance, because we want to empower everybody. But as you know, like, we need to use our resources very diligently, like the dollars and the human resource. We don't want everybody to just go wild and develop the same thing or do the same thing. So we need to establish some governance level to better understand who is doing what, or who is allowed to do what within a certain swim lane. And that would certainly allow to, empower employees to better leverage all the tools that are at their fingertips right now. I used to say that we're going through an evolution in IT, but I really think that it's not an evolution anymore. It is a revolution. And we have no choice. It's happening. There's another term that I've been using, like a Uber analogy. I've been telling my team, like, if we don't, take the bull by the horn, we're going to be Uberized. And therefore, we really need to, set those frameworks, set those governance mechanisms, establish the strategies, and then do the training or provide the training to the employees so that they can be better empowered and accelerate the digital modernization in our department and elsewhere as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lucy. So ladies, this time is going by way too quickly. We've got 3 minutes left. I'd be remiss, these fantastic women leaders. What are your advice to women in IT? So why don't we go Christiana, Michelle, and then Lucy?
My advice is understand your material, get the depth of technology. There's no easy wins. Eventually catches up with you in senior level positions. You really need to get more comfortable and study the field. Understand that landscape of technology has changed. So arm yourself with different skill sets to be able to also articulate the vision, the strategy. It's not only about being in the back office. get to know the industry. The industry is really changing. I'm sure my colleague Lisa can speak to that. It's amazing how many opportunities are out there for women in technology that is not strictly in the lane of a software designer or software developer or an engineer. Other thing I was going to mention, I really benefited through my career to get good mentors. I got good mentors, and male mentors and female mentors. So don't be shy. I still LinkedIn casually to people I just meet not on the street through panels. And it really pays off because you can have some good exchanges with them. And first and foremost, and then what else? Be inclusive. Push for inclusiveness. Don't assume it's going to be given to you.
Good. I wish we could have everyone's response here, but we're out of time. And I'm a big believer, if you can see her, you can be her. And so that's why I love to see this powerhouse of female leaders here today and sharing your advice. And I agree, mentorship, sponsorship, network, and learn and be confident. So thank you. Phenomenal conversation. Wish
Thank
we
you,
could go
everybody.
longer.
Thank you so much.
Merci.
Bye-bye. Merci beaucoup.